in electrical engineering. So it's my pleasure to come to here to share my, I don't know whether good or bad experience.
Thank you. Who wants to introduce themselves next? Catherine, maybe? I can see you.
I can do that, yes. I'm Catherine Stuck. I am a biomedical engineer at the University of Melbourne. I arrived just under 5 years ago. I arrived into the mechanical engineering department, have since joined the biomedical engineering department. At my previous university, I was in the health sciences and technology department. Before that, the information technology and electrical engineering department. And before that, at my other university, I was in mechanical engineering. So I feel like I'm a little bit of everything or a lot of nothing. But I'm a biomedical engineer with a mechanical engineering training.
So cool. Raquel, I think I can see you next.
Hi, I am an associate lecturer at the Department of Mechanical Engineering, but I am a physicist by my studies, and before I also worked always in physics. So I'm a fake engineer.
Yeah, we really need physics. This is the fundamental things for mechanical.
Yeah. Sorry, Ailey, your turn, I guess.
Sure. Hi, I'm Chapman. I'm a senior lecturer in mechanical engineering, and I usually teach to the mechatronics area, but also to the aero area. So my background followed through aero predominantly, but then robotics, so a mixture of both. But I think I pretty much belong in mechanical, so happy where I am.
Sweet. Thank you so much for introducing yourselves, and thank you for coming. So for the people that are here, if you have any questions, feel free to just put them in the chat, but if not, we'll just ask questions to get people talking. Question for everyone. What inspired you to pursue your career? I guess I should give you guys an order to respond in. Catherine, you're the first person I can see.
Excellent. What inspired me to pursue engineering? Well, I have to admit I was pretty clueless about what engineering was when I started my engineering degree. It was a love of mathematics and physics and things that move that had me sign up. It was very much at the prodding of my father, who is a humanities teacher, so not known for his technical prowess, but he seemed to think it was something that I would be suited to. But I remember sitting in my first probably 2 years constantly being introduced to words like a cam, a turbine, and thinking I must be the most stupid student on the planet because I had never heard of these words before. So yes, I was inspired by my father purely from a love of mathematics.
That's so cool. Ying, what about you?
I think my answer would be very similar to Catherine. I was not inspired. I was forced to select control engineer because before my father was retired, he did similar things. He worked in a company. He's a control engineer. He thought nothing is better than control, and you have to go to the same university as he was, and the same area. That's probably happened to me. I think I start to love this area maybe after 5 years graduate from my PhD. I realized what's the problem I'm dealing with. I think before that, I just like normal nerd, probably. I use the word nerd because I just follow what teacher said, trying to do well in my exam without thinking about all those things really mean. But after a while, I start to realize, okay, what we are doing things and how important doing robotics, particularly rehabilitation robotic system, would be benefit for patients. That's probably it's my journey.
It's really interesting. Bailey, what about you? How did you get to where you are?
I started from really sort of reflecting on what I liked in school, and that was problem solving. And I think I wanted something more than just problems being on paper. So the idea of being an engineer was the natural extension of that, and all the things that go with engineering, like collaboration, working on big problems to solve world crises, were all things that kind of appealed to me, of sort of leaving the world a better place than when I entered it. And I think probably what drew me specifically to my subdiscipline was, I don't know if anyone's seen the movie Batteries Not Included. It's probably before people's time. Go check it out. It's probably free on YouTube. It's a story of these little tiny robots that that help people solve sort of a crisis that evolves through the film. But that kind of idea of having even these ideas of small robotics that help people was something that really inspired me to say, hey, look, maybe I want to go into mechatronics, and because they flew aero. So yeah, that's where I ended up.
That's so cool. What about you, Raquel?
Yeah, I also loved mathematics. I had an amazing physics teacher in high school. I was really like, I want to be like this guy. And then when I started also choosing the career, I was like reading everything that physics and engineering did. I was in between the two. I was like, which one do I go? And I don't know, I got more inspired by physics. I thought the things that knowing exactly how the basics, like how the things go from the inside, maybe not so for the machines. Then I went for physics. But now I'm teaching in engineering. So.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for sharing. Very cool. It seems like maths is like a very good starting point for everyone. What is the proudest moment in your career?
This was a tricky one for me, because it was the word moment that I was a bit confused by, because that kind of indicates a point in time. So I went for achievement. I went for what's my proudest achievement in my career, which is easily getting a doctoral degree from the Swiss Federal University of Technology. That was the culmination of 4.5 years of hard work in a country that was not native English speaking, in a culture that was not the one I'd grown up in. It was hard, but definitely a source of pride. Even today, I can look back at it that way. If I think of a moment, earlier this year, a colleague in the Netherlands asked me if I would mentor her through to the next stage of her career. And that strikes me as something where I thought somebody's actually looking to me as a role model, which feels odd, but also, yeah, it's a source of pride.
It's very impressive. What about you, Ying?
Probably it's not happening yet. It will come this Friday. We developed a new rehabilitation robotic system from scratch, and we design it, we patent it, we do IP transfer to industry. And this Friday, the industry partner will release a new product from this. I'm so proud of that, because it was a long journey starting from 2017. A lot of work in terms of design, the principle of design. We have to redesign everything. We went through working with clinicians, we talked to industry, we consider manufacturing process, we modified this product with industry partners, and finally we develop, working with them, develop the games for stroke patient to play with. And this Friday, it will be released as a product. It will be really nice to look at this, because it's a long journey. It's not pleasant, but finally it went through.
It's very exciting.
Yes, it is.
Ellie?
That's a tough one to follow. I mean, I think as Catherine was speaking to, I feel it's not so much moments, it's achievements that take often a long time to get there that you really celebrate. probably near the end of my PhD, when my research came out as a book. That was a big thing, because it had to go through quite a bit of process to get to that point. And there's a sort of acknowledgement that you've gone deeper than anyone's gone before, and that's really exciting, to really be groundbreaking. I think we all have a little bit of a thrill when you've done something that is new. I get a lot of enjoyment and a lot of thrill out of doing a new collaboration. So we've done some really big collaborations that, when they come together and they culminate, and you get all those people in the room working towards a big problem, and you've done something again that hasn't been done before, they're all really exciting. So probably a recent one is we're going to be launching next year the first ever Australian Space Agency supported satellite. That's pretty awesome. And there's just so many people working towards this task. When I was in the US, I had the opportunity to work with Boeing, and there's a module in the galley. That's something I worked on. So when you're on the plane, you're like, point over, it's like, I did that. You know, your coffee is getting the right temperature because I affected that algorithm. And then I've also worked with NASA's JPL, which has been pretty inspirational, mainly because the people you work with are just the best of the best, and that's a great feeling as well. So yeah, I think probably the collaborations are ones, those big collaborations are the ones I get the most feeling of achievement from.
You also had a lot of awards for different things earlier, right? You have a lot of achievement in terms of awards.
Yeah, I was pretty fortunate to get a few different accolades, but it's the work you do beforehand. That's just sort of the icing on the cake. I think the steps beforehand are the ones that you put in the hard work for, and then at some point someone may notice. Thanks, Ying, for noticing.
Very impressive. I think the takeaway is that everyone's very impressive here. What about you, Raquel? What would you pick?
Yeah, I think I also find it hard, as Catherine said, is like an earlier, like it's difficult to find one moment, but it's always when you conclude something. So certainly the PhD is kind of maybe a very long, your first very long project, but also every project, every collaboration that you finish and you have that, you know, in an article or some deliverable, let's say, and that thing is concluded, you feel like you are accomplished. So I don't know if I want to put one moment, but I think every project that we complete and publish something, or something comes out of it, for me is an achievement.
Yeah. And Raquel helped us to develop a lot of nice subjects, right, in the department. And without you, I think we have a lot of troubles in teaching. You should be very proud of that.
I'm very modest. I don't like to say that I'm helping much in this sense.
Yeah. So I think without her, my exam would be difficult to set up. And she helped a lot, and also teaching engineering students like dynamics, advanced dynamics. It's not easy subjects, and her teaching really helped a lot of students. We do appreciate.
When you get to the final exam and you see a lot of people doing good, you're like, hey, they learned it. It's also an achievement.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, you have a big impact on a lot of people. I've been watching a lot of your videos that help with things like drill teaching. So I think you get an impact from areas you probably don't even know about.
Well, thank you so much for sharing.
Sorry, if I can ask a quick question. So between the time you chose to do engineering and obviously you have all achieved so much, have you experienced, I guess, imposter syndrome at any stages and kind of struggled with the challenges of studying engineering? Because personally, I've had 3 of you as my lecturers, and I do have to admit I found all of the subjects very challenging. And especially I think seeing my peers be more confident in a subject, yeah, really kind of felt a bit unsure, like, is engineering really right for me, kind of thing. Should I just be, you know, writing BuzzFeed articles or something as my career? But yeah, I just wanted to hear about your experiences of maybe like imposter syndrome or anything like that.
Maybe I can share my experience. My background is engineering. Currently, I have worked a lot with clinicians from different perspectives. Particularly, we are working with physios and clinicians to deal with to deal with a stroke, right? We try to help stroke patients to recover after stroke. First thing for me to understand all the terminology in medical becomes very, very difficult. I have a very nice colleague. She always helped me to explain things because sometimes I don't understand. For example, the simple word spasticity, which we deal with a lot recently, but at the beginning, she had to explain to me what spasticity means for stroke patient. I had a lot of difficulties understand those things. And I have to read a lot of medical papers, which sometimes I feel like that's almost impossible to remember such long-term knowledge. But then once you put enough effort, you will think, okay, that word probably difficult to pronounce it maybe 3 months ago. After you repeat 20 times, it becomes easier. And it just depends on how you want to make it. And you believe that. So the topic I'm looking at, I always encourage my students saying that you probably will get stroke in 30, 40, 50 years. You just consider you have a time machine, you do something right now to help you in future. That's really a good motivation to keep you doing it. So I still have maybe 20, 30 years before I can get my first stroke. I have enough time to do my research on that. Is that answering your question?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, I'd probably say that I think a lot of learning engineering is about being uncomfortable. That's kind of a weird thing. You get something new and it's uncomfortable. Being unaware, especially when you come from, maybe you've mastered something, but then you go into something new and the idea is, well, I don't know this as well. And it's really difficult to start saying, well, can I get to the point where I know it? And when do I know that I know it enough? Right? That's always the question. Maybe I've done well in courses, but can I actually apply it? And I think that hits everybody. I think it hits everybody. It definitely hits me. And it's really difficult too to want to push through it. There's always something that says, hey, look, I was good at that course 2 years ago. I'll just stick to that. I won't develop any further. But yeah, I kind of feel it helps to sort of reflect on how good does it feel when you do learn something new, when you do master it, when you do demonstrate something in a way that you haven't done before. And I think coming to terms with the fact that that's going to keep on happening, probably no matter what area you get in, even the BuzzFeed writer probably will have those kind of issues. I think is part of really trying to push your boundaries and push a career. And I think I like to think that a little bit of that imposter syndrome makes you stronger too, in that you're willing to put just that extra more effort in. So if you feel that you have it and someone doesn't, maybe that's an edge, right? Because you're going to spend just that little bit more on a problem to really understand it to a depth that makes you feel more comfortable. So I'd probably say try to take it as a positive, if you can, and sort of, if you can, push through. And I know that's hard, and because I find it hard. And if you have any hints, let me know.
Also, I think from a human motor learning perspective, we always learn from errors. And if you consider the techniques we use to help people learn faster, is you augment your error. We magnify your error, you can see it clearly so that you can take more actions to correct this one. So all the errors you made, it can help you to improve. And if something really works very well, you probably will forget. I will remember all the mistakes I made. I can't remember what I have achieved, but I remember mistakes I made. So don't take this negatively.
Yeah, and I wanted to say something similar to what Ellie said. I think I changed field, like from my master in research to my PhD. I changed a bit field, and every time you change a little bit, you go to do something slightly different. I think I always felt this imposter syndrome. Am I doing the right thing? What am I doing here? Do I know enough? And then it pushes you to actually do that bit more, to be certain that you are doing at least as much as your colleagues, but you try to do more. When you have this imposter syndrome, it also pushes you to move forward. So I don't think it makes us feel uncomfortable, but it all at the same time pushes us to go a bit further and do more, maybe.
Yeah, thank you for that.
My only response to how have I ever felt imposter syndrome would be regularly, and just requires some tenacity, perseverance, and sometimes, put my big girl socks on and get the job done. But it's uncomfortable, that's for sure. I agree with everything the others have said.
Helps to get a reminder from a friend too.
That's right. It
Catherine, you
definitely.
look awesome, by the way.
Thank you, Ellie. Yeah, it can be hard.
Sweet, thank you so much. If you weren't in the engineering field like you are right now, what would you be doing if you
I had
could?
to laugh when I saw this question, because I ask myself this on a very regular basis. And I'm going for a bookshop owner or a librarian, because really the only other thing I'd want to do is just lie on a couch and read books all day. I mean, it's either that or solving the world's problems as an engineer.
It's very cool. It's a nice two ends of a spectrum, I guess.
Right.
What about you, Ying?
Kindergarten teacher. I really wanted to do that. So in China, maybe at year 9, you can decide whether you can go to high school or you can go to special school that's training to be a kindergarten teacher. I really wanted to, and my mom said, no, you have to go to high school. I still like to play with kids, and even right now, my son is 18. I feel like I want him to be younger so that I can play with him, but currently he's too big.
Ellie, what would you be doing?
Oh, I'm just going to cheat. I'm going to pick something that's very close. I'd probably say something like science communication. So less doing the science and the engineering myself, but more talking to others about it. I mean, I think I wouldn't have ended up at a university doing research and lecturing if I didn't really like to communicate how far we've come as humanity to others. I mean, I could have just gone into pure research in an industry position otherwise. So I think the idea of trying to impassion other people to take steps along a STEM path, or at least just know enough, know a little bit, be inquisitive, learn a little bit more about an area, I think is a really great way to approach life. And if I can get more people to want to be lifelong learners, I think that would make me feel like I've had a good career achievement.
I think that was cheating at all. That works quite well. What about you, Raquel?
I think I would either be a cook or I would be a teacher of high school or even kids. I really take a pleasure in teaching. So I think I would be teaching all the levels other than the university, but I also love cooking.
Me too.
Cool. So we have a bookshop and a cook and a kindergarten teacher, a science communicator. Very cool. If you could look back and talk to your university self, what piece of advice would you give them? I guess because all of us are university students here. You want to know.
This kind of goes back to 2 of the questions that we had earlier, for me at least. One is the imposter thing. I think I went through university thinking I'm not meant to be here because I'm a girl and I didn't know what engineering was when I arrived. I wish I could go back and say to myself, you're loving this, right? You're doing okay. You're not you're not failing, you're enjoying it. That's exactly what you're meant to be getting out of this experience. And I think I'd like to be able to say to myself, you don't know it yet, but you are going to love the next 20 years of your life. Where this degree has taken me, I could never, ever have imagined.
It's really inspiring. Whoever wants to take it next, Ying.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. Maybe according to my current situation, I wish I can take more subjects in biology so that I might not be so struggling when I'm talking to the clinicians.
Very practical. What about you, Ellie?
I think probably I was very focused at university and solving what I'd probably say is the problems of today. There's a sort of a strong focus on getting through an example. And if I got through that example, I've solved that problem. And that's actually kind of a bit of a scary way to enter the world, because you have to then consider every single problem as being new. I think I'd probably tell my past self to sort of probably better embrace the scientific method, to kind of say that I'm learning methodologies, I'm learning methods to solve a problem. I'm not learning to solve that problem. And that gives a lot of security, because when you start going into new areas that may have been something you haven't touched upon, you can go in with more of an overlooking approach. And I think that's pretty telling, in that the area that I'm working in, which is drones, wasn't even a thing when I was an undergrad. So there was no training in it. It was just something that once it came along, you had to say, well, I can do this. I know the method. I know how to approach the problem. I can do this. And that kind of approach, I think if I'd learned that earlier on, I think I would have been a bit more comfortable, especially with newer subjects, newer concepts, and expanding my bubble of knowledge.
Yeah, that's very, very useful. I think when I was in university, I think doing exam was not too difficult. A lot of subjects I relearned it when I was doing master, when I was doing PhD. Then I got totally different feeling of same subjects. I guess probably as the things you get deeper, you can get a better picture. But undergraduate level, probably if you can focus on some fundamental things, those fundamental things can be easily extended to different applications, because you never know in 20 years what kind of applications we are dealing with. You never know, because technology goes so fast, but fundamentals will not change.
All right, that's very useful. Thank you. Raquel?
I honestly don't know. I think, like Ying said, during my research, sometimes I was like, I should have paid more attention to that lecture or take that other elective, because now I need it, or I need to relearn it because I don't remember exactly what I did. So I think that's all I can think now, to be honest. Yeah, just maybe have taken one or other elective that before I didn't think it was important, and then later on I wish I had known.
Thank you. Do you think that you've had a different experience as a woman in STEM compared to your male colleagues?
Yeah, this is a topic of conversation. I recently had a conversation with one of my male colleagues, and he said to me, well, everybody finds it hard. It's hard for everybody. And I thought, it is. It's a challenging career that we're in. It might not be becoming a Hollywood actor challenging, but it's challenging, which means it's going to be hard no matter what. But I don't know if you've had a chance to watch the documentary Picture a Scientist, which came out recently. And in there, they have three professors from the US. And one of them was a professor in the 80s and 90s, very well renowned around the world. And she describes, in the dead of night, measuring out lab space to describe, to show that the men had more lab space than the women in the faculty. And I think it's the little things when you're spending a lot of time on things that you really shouldn't be spending time on. Like there's an erosion of effort that means that you do. So it is a different experience for sure. I think there are positives that come out of that difference. But there's also negatives. And for me, where I notice that the most is the amount of time I have to spend on things that are not necessarily things that are even on the radar of my male colleagues.
Do you want to share what kind of extra things there are, by any chance?
One person described it to me as a female tax, as in women are involved in things like mentoring other women, which is a great thing to do, right? But it's time away from other things that your male colleagues aren't necessarily doing. So, you know, I'm not complaining about the task. Like I said, there are definite benefits from that, but it's certainly a different experience, and it certainly does have knock-on effects inside your career as well, and what choices. This woman on this picture, a scientist, at the end of it, she looks at a pile of binders sitting in her office, and she says, when I look at those binders, I just see a mammoth amount of work that was just fighting for equality in the department. That was not my research, which was the thing I was passionate about. And it just struck me in the heart when I heard that, because I thought, what percentage of your time are you fighting to be legitimate or to be perceived as legitimate? You are legitimate. And how much of it you're actually pursuing your passion.
Right, thank you. Jean, what about you?
I think I'm probably less sensitive about those issues. One thing is maybe related to personality. And also I have worked with very nice colleagues. Those problems like male, female never be a problem. But I think over years, I learned very important lesson is to be professional, whether you are male, female, whether you're working full-time, part-time, and you do things just for things, not for any personal feelings. I think if you can separate your personal feeling from the things you are focusing on, you probably will feel better. So if people think I'm not good in doing this one, I will improve it. I don't care whether people think I'm female or I'm male. I'm just looking at things without considering feelings. I will deal with things first. Then maybe when I have more time, I'm thinking, is that something wrong? But normally I'm too busy to think about this. So I just take things positively. Try to improve yourself. You improve yourself for your own sake, not for anyone else. That's it.
Thank you. It's very useful. Ellie?
I think people make assumptions. That's a general thing. We don't go into any kind of social interaction or professional interaction where you aren't assuming something when someone steps into the room. I think that the gender one is one that's very quick to check and very quick to make a guess about. And when we have statistics that, for example, in our department areas, that mechanical in particular, I think we're sitting on about 15% women, and it's been the same since the 1960s. There is a tendency to assume that if two people walk into the room of opposite genders, that the male is the mechanical and the female is the PA. And that's not something that that is the right thing to do. And you can't necessarily say that that person should be more aware. It just means that you have that extra layer of barrier to break down. But I think the idea of going into a situation being confident, being aware of what you know, you can correct that quickly. And it's important to realize that it isn't just genders that comes across. Whole different things. Anything that you can judge from the way someone looks is something that's going to be the first 5 minutes you're going to have to overcome. Now, some of those are easy to correct. Maybe you can dress nicely, right? But some aren't, right? And anything relating to appearances, glasses, whatever, there's a limit on what you can. I guess you can wear contacts, okay? But there's limits on what you can come up against. But I think it's also good to also realize that there's a lot of things that get added to the equation because of the gender difference. There's been a lot of studies that show that if you work in groups that have a balance of genders, or if you work in groups that have males and just one female added, it improves productivity immensely just because you have a diverse set of perspectives on things. Engineering problems in particular are really, really important to have a diverse set of people in the room making the decisions. We've got so many engineering examples where things went very, very wrong because they didn't have more than more than just males in the room. Examples that are a bit more benign are things like the temperature of office buildings are dictated by the average male's metabolic rate. So women are generally colder and less productive in the buildings. Things like cell phones are designed on a man's hand, not a female's hand, which is why if you ever try to operate one of those like really large phones with one hand, it's literally impossible for women. But then there's more serious things like seatbelt testing was done off males, not females. And so you have I think it's a 30% higher chance of in a fatal accident dying if you're female than if you're male because of the seatbelt construction. But that also impacts smaller men as well. Things like PPE equipment for police officers designed around not the same chest layer as women. So they have a higher chance under stabbing that female officers come out more with higher injuries than men. So there's a lot of things that come about when you only put one type of person in the room when designing something. And I think it's really important to understand that you're not, women aren't infringing on a new area of engineering. Women are adding to this area, and it's such a valued component. And having that presence is correcting those misconceptions, making things better, and having that presence is helping everybody. And the more that we get out there, the more it helps mixing, you're improving the whole world. So I think maybe that can be a bit of a balancing act. It is again, different, but some of those differences can really make a big change.
Yeah, great.
So a very useful takeaway. Raquel, what would you say?
I have to say that I never felt it directly on me. Maybe because physics, I think, at least where I studied, it was even worse than engineering in the amount of women that we had. So sometimes I didn't even realize that I was the only woman. And this made me feel like maybe natural in the middle of men. So when I come into a room where I talk to somebody, it doesn't matter whether it's a man or a woman, I will talk the same way. But over my career, I did hear sometimes people making assumptions about women, and then you make a step back and you say, are they maybe saying something like this also, about me or my other colleagues? So you have to overcome really this, preconception that people have about women sometimes. But personally, I never had to really deal with anything tricky. I was fortunate.
I guess a related question would be, what have you found most challenging being a woman in this area of study?
It really does follow on, for me anyway. I've often been, it's a strange word, I don't know if it's the right word, but lonely, in the sense that being the only woman in the room, being the only female in the research group, I would say until I moved to Melbourne 5 years ago, that was the norm. And yeah, so there's a loneliness to working and having to be that voice of difference, at different perception and speaking out and kind of standing there even when you feel like you're being pushed in the back, and trying not to stand out, and at the same time trying to be heard is a very difficult challenge. So yeah, I've decided to go with lonely, even though I'm sure there's a better English word for it. I can't think of it right now. But to me, that would probably be the biggest challenge. Yeah, finding a whole of life balance to make up for the fact that the workplace can at times be quite challenging. Yeah.
Ying?
I think currently it's getting okay. My son is already 18 years old. He's in year 12. But when Eric was young, it was quite difficult, particularly during the school holiday. And sometimes he had come to my office and sitting in the corner when my PhD students was talking to me. And he even remembered some famous mathematician used. He even remembered some names, some contents when we discussed. But that part was quite challenging because I have to keep him quiet during my meeting with my PhD. But right now it's getting better. So I feel like how to balance your life, your work is always challenging. But currently, I can see more dads are involved in raising up the kids. I think still probably have similar issues with male colleagues as well. I see sometimes some male colleagues also bring their kids to the office during the school holiday. So I think it will be getting more similar. But that's the problem. It's just how to balance your life. You are mom, you are wife. I have to cook every day. So yeah, it's difficult, but it's also you need to learn how to manage your time. What's the right time? So when Eric was young, I was not working at night. I was not working during the weekend. So then, but right now I can because he can do everything by himself.
Ailey?
This is a tough one because I don't really think about challenges that challenges that happen because of my gender. I think of challenges just in general life. I mean, a lot of the features that we all deal with, work-life balance, I think it's important to realize that by assuming it's just a female problem, it's probably it could equally impact to men as well. For example, they say having compulsory or having optional paternity leave is actually good for men and good for women because the woman has less caring and the man has the benefit of spending time with his children, which is something that we all want. So the idea of a balanced life is really important. Sometimes people focus a lot that it's something that women need, but any of these kind of initiatives that bring in better balance across genders is really helps everybody involved. And I think it's I mean, I can pick out sort of benign things about being a woman in that, like anything relating to a lot of engineering things are usually a bit more designed towards men, like things you wouldn't really think about, heights of things. I work on a drone lab. I have cameras set up around the lab. They're all slightly out of my height range. Any of the equipment that I have to like talk with my hands, they're usually designed for a man's grip strength. So there's like things like that I come across that I think, oh, well, that's just a woman thing. But not so much where I think, oh, that's the one that has made a big impact because I'm female rather than being male. I mean, I could say that I was teaching in the US and I had groans from the class because XYZ versus XYZ. I ended up not introducing that variable name when I was teaching because it was too distracting for the students that I said as an Australian the wrong accent when I was abroad. So I mean, there's things that come up just because you're from a difference, but I think that's something that I wouldn't really sort of pinpoint that's made something that's more challenging than most out of all the different things that make me individual.
Thank you. So a good point. I'm also just cautious of time in case you have to.
Yeah, I don't have much to add what the others already mentioned, like the work-life balance. Like when you have kids, as Ying said, you start maybe having to take care on all the things, but maybe you just have to find the right balance and how to do the things. And I think, yeah, I never had any personal, I never felt at least any personal challenge for being a woman, maybe of my height, but that I could not reach something. But
All right, so it seems like height and work-life balance are the two takeaways here.
I thought that was a pretty almost pessimistic way to end the Q&A questions that you sent me. So I actually came up with a question of my own, which was, what do I enjoy most about being a woman in STEM / an engineer? And for me, if I was going to answer that question, I would say identifying problems and troubleshooting and pursuing solutions to those problems in whatever discipline of engineering, computer science that I've been able to be trained and competent in. That, yeah. So that's my little question back. And what do you enjoy most?
Sorry, I missed that. I was looking at Ellie leaving and I missed the question.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I was saying, what do I enjoy most about being an engineer / a woman in STEM? And that, for me, is identifying problems and pursuing solutions. Yeah, in all the flavors of engineering and computer science.
Thank you for making that positive. That's actually a very good point. Yeah, I guess to the rest of the floor, Ying.
I noticed Angus had posted a message on chat box to ask when how do you know it's something you like? The answer is very simple. If you like something, you don't care how much time you spend on it. So it just I like this one. I want to finish it. No matter how busy I am, I can find out time to work on that. I don't care how much time I spend. I don't care about I probably have to stay late. I have to wake up early. It just because I like it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Ying. If you like what you are doing, even if you have to work that bit more to get it done, it kind of doesn't bother you. I don't know if you are enjoying what you're doing. Now, if you really hate every moment, then maybe that's not the correct one. I don't know.
Yeah, and Olivia's saying, because I can't seem to picture myself applying what I learned so far into working, I think the important thing to understand is the difference between education and career. What you're doing now is fundamental toolkit building. It's not really in some, in a lot of ways, an insight into what the job looks like. What the job looks like really is up to you in the sense of, if you don't like it, as Ying says, you'll move on to something else. But if you are passionate about the learning and what's in the educational toolkit or toolbox, then the job will find you, so to speak. Yeah, because that's where you'll find it. But yeah, shoot back any clarity you want on that.
No, it's good. Thank you.
I think it's very it's a long procedure, and if you really don't enjoy it, you don't enjoy what you are doing, I really suggest you to consider other options, because I can see a lot of my PhD students, master students, they doing things because their parents push them to get higher education. They themselves, they don't want it, and sometimes the things that they are doing, they don't enjoy it. I just feel like, why just you can't find something you really like to do? Even you hit the wall, then you feel like, let me try the other direction. I want to get there. No matter what something is stopping me, I will try to figure out direction. If you really enjoy it, you keep trying things. You can see it. You keep trying things because you don't think it's waste of your time. Then you will be there. As long as you find something you can do that, keep doing it for 30 years. I can guarantee you that you will be successful.
Does that answer your question, Olivia?
Sort of, kind of, yeah. But I chose science because I don't know what I like initially. So I think science is like provide a very broad pathway. So now I'm doing mathematics. I don't necessarily hate it, but I don't think like I'm that passionate about it. So I just wonder, how do you that what you're studying now is, it's going to lead to a career that you like, or how do you decide what kind of career pathway that you choose? If that makes sense.
Can I comment real quickly as well? So I actually started out wanting to do work on medical devices. So I actually started studying all like anatomy and things like that in my undergraduate degree. But at the end of the day, I realized more mechanical and like aerospace related subjects were like my grades were worse in those subjects, but I kind of enjoyed being challenged in those subjects more. So like even though I wasn't as good in those subjects, I felt like this was something I could do for like years to come, whilst anatomy, as fun as it was, and I was really happy with my scores, it just got boring, and like there was a limit to how much I could enjoy it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's helpful, but that's kind of how I yeah, kind of turned around completely from thinking of pursuing biomedical engineering to doing aerospace.
Yeah, right. Thank you for sharing.
And you might circle back the other way. I hated biology at school, had no interest in studying it. As soon as they told me I didn't have to, I chose not to. And then I went to university and did a mechanical engineering degree, followed by biomedical engineering, at which point I had to learn anatomy and physiology. But at that point, I needed it to actually help me solve the problems I was trying to solve as an engineer. And so now it had become something, as Ying was saying earlier, that I was passionate about because it was helping me get to the goal that I could see ahead, as opposed to just another subject my teachers at school were making me sit. And so I think that oftentimes your interests and your passions shift as you start getting more insight into who you are and what drives you. And so, and that's evolving, right? I would say even at the age I am today, there are still things where I go, oh, that could actually be really handy for me to learn more about. And so off I'll go and I'll investigate it. And I evolve as a person and as an engineer. And that's a very personal thing. But I would encourage you not to be so black and white, as in, know what you don't like, know what drives you as a person, but don't necessarily go like maths, don't like biology, like this, don't like that. Like oftentimes it's actually where the borders of these things start to blur that they get interesting.
I just wanted to add to your comments. I think I feel it's a bit natural sometimes in undergrad. You don't have like an overview of all the things that you can do. But when you arrive at the end of your career, or when you start the master or something, when you get involved in some type of project, or you start doing something with the things that you learned, and that thing leads to, you need something else, and then you start searching or studying that author part that you need, then you start seeing the things coming together. So don't desperate if now you don't see the whole picture. I feel that this is in an undergrad, it's kind of still okay to not see the big picture.
Yeah, I completely agree with what Raquel and Catherine said. I think particularly in my case, my background is more complicated than Catherine. I did my bachelor in electrical and my master in systems engineer, my PhD back to electrical, then my postdoc in chemical, and I stayed in electrical engineering for about 18 years. Then I moved to mechanical. Almost every engineering discipline, I just went through different area. So I'm thinking about, I'm kind of person, if I want to spend time, I will spend time well. I don't want to waste some time. I want to play with my son. I will fully concentrate on playing with him. Nothing, I will not check email. I will not check my mobile phone. I just play with him. Okay, when I'm doing things I really want to do, I just focus on this. At the beginning, I really don't have the options which direction I want to go. But I just feel like if I'm taking these subjects, I want to take these subjects and try to learn as much as I can, because I never know in future whether those something I should have learned will contribute to my career, because you never know. If you have very broad background and you can link things easily, it will help you in future career. Because currently, if you look at my parents' career, they stay in one company for 30, 40 years. They never had opportunity to change. But currently, if I look at my career, I keep changing my directions. And then I can't see something currently is not important, but in future, it will not be important either. So my policy is simple. I don't know what's going on for future. Let me play my current cards well enough. If I'm learning something, I will stick to this something finished with a good understanding. And even sometimes I probably can't remember, but if I have time, I need to remember this one. I have to go revisit. I will be much quicker than other things. Currently, I think all the subjects you are doing is build foundations for your future career. And then you go back, maybe you go to industry for 10 years, then you think, oh, maybe in subjects she was talking about something. Now I can remember. So you can link things that you learned from university, probably not right now, maybe 10 years later, 20 years later. But as long as you have a broad knowledge, you utilize your time well enough, it will be benefit. I think there are something that I learned I never used in my career, but I don't know. I still have 20 years to go in my career. I probably in future I can use it. Just a very practical attitude, because you never can predict what will going to happen. No one can predict pandemic will happen, but as long as you have something like you do the best what you can do right now, and in future you just probably not regret wasting of your time. That's kind of attitude I have.
Thank you. That was like super insightful, very inspiring. I guess last question. Cass has a question to ask.
Yeah, good day. Can you see me?
Yeah.
You can see me. Yeah, I sort of attended today because I'd noticed the massive discrepancy in my course in terms of at least 90% of the students in the mechanical engineering course are male. And I was just curious to get a bit more of an understanding about what kind of difficulties women in engineering encounter, if that was a factor, feeling like you're in the minority. And I got some good answers there. But there are a couple of other questions I had, and I'll keep it quick because we're almost out of time. But I was just wondering, what do you think the main barriers are stopping more women from taking up STEM study in the first place? Is it an issue in the education system in primary school, or are the primary issues attitude issues in terms of stereotypical gender roles and the way people perceive what they should be studying or what they should be working in? Or do you think it's workplace related, like they don't see career opportunities in engineering as a woman? Just curious.
That's a very difficult question to answer. I don't know how to answer this question. I think over years, university is trying to encourage to hire more female academic staff, and we're trying to balance gender. And you can see more and more female academic staff in the university, and around society is happening as well. However, when I look at my experience as like my son's parents, and he used to be in private school which have boys and girls, and I talk to some girls' parents, and they always think that girls are not smart enough to do mathematics. That's something I feel like very strange. A particular I grew up in China. I never feel like this kind of feeling from my parents. But it's pretty common in Australia. I don't know whether it's conclusive or not. It just from my conversations with parents of Eric's friends. I think probably this attitude should change, because people think females are not smart enough. Sometimes we have to try to encourage to say, okay, everyone will be similar. Sometimes encourage more to trust yourself that you can do it. That's most important. If you have confidence in yourself, you can do it. It doesn't matter you are female or you are male.
I think it's multifaceted, Cass. When I was a kid, I remember in grade 3 telling my teacher that I wanted to be a pilot, an aeroplane pilot, and she told me that that wasn't a job for a girl, and which tells you that I'm old, because surely we don't have those attitudes anymore in today's society, right? but I think that part of it is the messaging that's come through. And even, you know, I'm not an old woman, I am older, but, you know, we've still got generations that are moving through the workplace that have heard that messaging as kids. So we definitely don't have the bulk of the numbers behind us. And I think a lack of role models. And so Ying was talking about lecturers at university. When I went through university, I had no female lecturers. So I never saw somebody doing the job that I do today as a student in engineering. And on top of that, as a lecturer, I've had student feedback come through the SES that has said things like, that lady lecturer shouldn't be teaching engineering. So, you know, within your generation, there is an attitude towards what the lecturers should look like in an engineering study. So it's multifaceted. There's not going to be one fix. It's definitely something where we need allies at all levels, primary school, secondary school, within the university, within the teaching staff and the professional staff of the university, but also within the student cohorts, people like yourself. It's not a question of intelligence. I think that there's enough evidence to show us that, but there is definitely a place for role models. And I say that the first time I met a female engineering head of department was when I started my job here 5 years ago. That is too late in my career, in my opinion, to see that kind of role model. And with only 10% of the cohort still in mechanical engineering, we're still not there in terms of visibility. So it's going to take a lot of work.
Yeah. So when Doreen Thomas was department head of mechanical engineering, in mechanical engineering building, there was no female toilet.
Yeah, when I arrived, I walked in the door and she went, "Finally, another female mechanical engineer." And I thought that's a pretty sad indictment on where we've been. Yeah.
I guess it's like yeah, like you said, kind of like the attitudes and stereotypes we've had growing up as well. Like, you know, it's a very decades old kind of thing where like women didn't even go to university, you know, in like 30s, kind of 40s and things like that. Like I went to an all-girls school and they had things like European choir tours and visual arts and drama tours, history tours for like 10 plus years. And only like a few years after I graduated, they introduced the science tour. So yeah, I guess it's just things like implementing what people just believe that girls are interested in, like just like associating women with certain words and certain traits. I think hopefully that will gradually get diluted out and we'll see more women in mechanical engineering and other areas of engineering as well.
And having people like my dad, you know, he was the one who said, do engineering. And I was like, I don't know what it is. He's like, you'll be good at it, do it. You know, like having allies and people who know where your strengths lie, even when you're young and clueless.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I just want to add that people, especially in your generation, maybe they want to believe that the things are better and they don't need to do anything. But unfortunately, this bias is still there. And as Catherine said, there is still older generations that are still passing some of these distorted values still, and it's still there. So it's not, we want to believe that it's gone, that everything is the same, but it's not. Unfortunately, if you look at the statistics and everything, these differences are still there. I just wanted to make a comment on something when I was living in Germany for a while, and there was this important summit with all the presidents of the different countries. And so they were discussing all the things that the male presidents said. But the first comment that came on Angela Merkel from Germany was her closings. So the media is also, there is people in the media making this type of comment that is not appropriate and influencing people watching it. So again, we want to believe that it's better, and certainly is better than 50 years ago, but the differences still exist, unfortunately. Many biases and differences in payment in the workspace and so on.
Can I add something? Hello.
Go ahead, Hassan.
Sorry, yes, go for it.
So hi, my name is Hassan, and I'm an international student from Bangladesh. So I mean, I do have one insight about it. Like, I actually come from a country which is like very conservative, and the gender inequality is like, you know, higher than anywhere else, like most countries. But I think we have more women studying like STEM subjects than males. I think how they did this is that like Jisoo mentioned about stereotypes. Like most Asian cultures has like stereotypes, you know. So that changed the stereotype, what I would say. Like the stereotype went from if you're a boy, then you should do science subjects. From there, they changed it to if you have higher grades, then maybe you should go for science subjects. All right. So what happened? Everyone was like getting very doing very good. They started to taking science subjects, and from 1990s to like in mid to like 2010s, there are a larger number in there are higher female students studying STEM by subjects than males, which is actually pretty impressive, I would say. And I would say it also have some political impact as well, because since 1991, all our head of state has been like women. All right. So I do think that like people get inspiration from the top. So yeah, I mean, it's not just the stereotypes, but it's a political structure. A lot of things that needs to be like changed, I believe, because like India, like Indian subcontinent has actually, I would say, more females studying science than males, is because I mean, I don't know, this is like my thoughts, that they somehow change the stereotypes of studying science subjects. But if you look at the like most of the Western world, it's actually like even in Australia, I would say like there are like I'm studying computer science. There are like I would say 70% to 80% students are male. So I mean, I think that so like this is happening because of a lot of stuff is happening, not just the stereotypes, but political, cultural, social events. So yeah, that's one way to like challenge it, I would say.
I just wanted to say thanks to everyone who answered. It's interesting to think that it's so multifaceted and it's not just a single issue. I was thinking in very black and white terms, like, oh, what is it? But it's everywhere. So
I wish it was one thing, then we'd know what to fix, right? Yeah, I've got a dream to write a book called I Want to Be an Engineer When I Grow Up, a kid's picture book. So if you know anybody who knows how to draw, because I've got all the words, I just need to make the rest of the book. But yes, my goal is to put it in every primary school in the country in an effort to actually tell young kids what it is, what an engineer looks like. Putting rockets into space, drones, implants, whatever it is. So yeah, I got a dream.
I had a colleague from Cambridge. He's very good at drawing things, and probably I can contact him if you want.
Yes, please.
I just feel like sometimes we really need a lot of role model to try to persuade girls that if you want to do something, you can do it. You can do it because you want to do it, not because you are girls, you can't do it. It's just a simple message. What you drive to, the driving force of yourself is most important. It's more important than the gender.
Thank you very much for all of your insight. Just cautious of time, maybe we'll end the session there. Really looking forward to reading this book that you're going to publish, Catherine. Really excited for it. But thank you so much for all of your input today. This has been like really inspiring, and I'm not going to word it correctly at all, but thank you for everything that you've said.
Yes,
We
thank
really
you
appreciate it.
for these things to share our experience. I think it's very helpful.
I agree.
Well, thank you very much for the event. I'll end it here. The recording will be up on YouTube. So thank you very much again.
Have a great evening.
Thank you.